Welcome to students for this recorded session now. As Constitution of India has been prescribed as one of your compulsory mandatory non-credit course, considering the engineering background which is your normal focus, at the same time we have to fulfill the mandate of AICTE for going through this sessions of this non-credit compulsory course Constitution of India. What would be the best possible advisable way of going through it? Now, if this course would have been prescribed maybe say 3 decades back, that time the overall dependency of the students for the material of any subject was on the contents of the lectures which they undergo, and the treatment would have been different. But now when we are living in an age where everything is available at the tip of the finger on Google, repeating something which is otherwise available to students in the form of either presentations or lectures or notes, it will not be repeating, or it would be just reinventing the wheel. Few years back, when situation was that information itself was the knowledge, that time the contents which were to be deliberated in the classroom would have been different. But with the transformed age today, what I thought is that I had always shared the YouTube lectures, PPTs, actual copy of Constitution of India is available to everybody on the internet. One of your students have already shared a series of YouTube sessions again that will be deliberated, that would have gone through various aspects. And one more thing is that the approach which is expected at this mandatory non-credit course is not exactly classical as students of law or specialization of constitutional law, wherein a very detailed analysis, the interpretation of each and every word is important. But the purpose of having this subject at master's level is that you should have a bird's view, you should have a holistic understanding of the Constitution of India, its broad features. It is not expected that you are expected to have a deep knowledge of very minute point in either constitution or its interpretation. So what is there is a teacher who really thinks of the meaningfulness of his lectures. He is always puzzled about how the session should be sequenced, what should be explained to the students so that they feel that there is exclusive value addition. What I mean exclusive value addition means, suppose if there is a standard lecture available on the internet now, and I simply repeat those contents in my own wording, in my own sentences, in a very, what we can say, classical way of explanation. But what would be the end result? The end result would be, students will feel, this was otherwise available to us, what is new in this? Therefore, I thought it at a very deeper level, and I am trying my level best, which would be of course concluded by you, that I would like to give that such kind of information to you which is otherwise not so readily available on internet. Means I will try to explain to you such things which, after listening my lecture, if you try to have a Google search, you will find that the contents which you could upgrade yourself by listening my lecture are really worth, and if it is to be captured, gathered by you, then you will require much more time. This is not some subject like what we can say Einstein's theory, wherein if I do, or Einstein's theory actually put forth by Einstein means that if he doesn't tell, nobody will know. It is not like that. So I should never claim that if I don't teach, if I don't explain, you don't get it. Then the impactfulness, meaningfulness, relevance of my lectures is to be judged by the amount of information which you got in available time. Those who are in electrical, electronics, computer IT fields, right now these are not there, but they will come to know about, or even actually in mechanical engineering also there is a concept of entropy. In electronics related things it is called an amount of information. So what value I would be able to add in my session, I would be going through small sessions, because today that these are not one-to-one meetings. Also when we listen in online session, our patience level is low, so we are not so much keeping track if lecture extends beyond some time. So we will try to have 25 to 35 minute sessions, and as I had already stated that since the things are available to you, presentations and lectures, I will try to choose those points which are important and which I think are exclusive. Also, the subject being of general knowledge nature, the contents need not be sequenced in a predefined way. The constitution has got many subdomains, and there is not that much interdependency or prerequisite. So I will sequence the contents in such a manner that it makes a feel of value addition in you. So the point which I had taken for today's discussion is very interesting, which you must be aware of, and which nowadays that even if awareness of constitution is obviously now large compared to earlier situation, in last many years we are observing 26th November as Constitution Day, and thereby there is awareness. Overall literacy level, education level of the country as a whole has increased. So many people now, irrespective of their formal education, know what we can say, means there was a time where many were not knowing what is constitution, but now many know many features of constitution. Then what is the purpose of prescribing it for master's course in engineering as a compulsory non-credit course? And if it is so, if everybody understands what is that which I should tell, so naturally I will choose those things which are less known by people, and of that the very important point which I have chosen today for discussion is Rajya Sabha. As stated very clearly, I will try to arrange my discussion in such a manner that you get good information. So the question is whether Sri Lanka is having other house, whether England, Great Britain is having other house, whether US is having other house of parliament, then the answer is yes. In US we have Senate. In UK, United Kingdom, you have got what is called as House of Lords. You have called what is called as House of Lords. As it is House, as it is House of Lords, what does it mean? As it is House of Lords, the very word itself is indicative of it, that it is something for some kind of affluent people. That House of Lords is something which is for affluent people, and naturally the structure of Rajya Sabha and House of Lords is not same. Anyway, those now if you think of what those who are having some interest and obviously having some enough time, because you should focus on your dissertation, you should focus on your placement, and then when you get some free time available, you try to explore out of interest so as to make you a multidimensional personality, some kind of studies of various things, of which is now relevant today is election to office of US President, where now Trump and Biden are being contesting against each other. So what I suppose is that you should study. There are few points which I will name here and which you can study at leisure time. Now, one, US President election system. Number two, House of Lords in UK. This is something which you can work with. Now, India is having a unitary state or a federal structure. Now, in original constitution, we had a federal structure, two-layer structure, where we had a union comprising of states. Union comprising of states. Then in 90s, what happened is that the constitution was amended so as to make the third layer also an effective layer of local self-governments. Prior to that, the local self-governments existed in our country, but not with a constitutional mandate. So we have a federal structure. Now in US also you have a federal structure. So House of Lords is something different right now. We don't deviate to that. The problem before me is now, since it is a very wide subject, there is every chance that I may deviate once one point is encountered, but I will try to restrict myself. So we are focusing on Rajya Sabha, its peculiarity. Then Rajya Sabha is, now we are having in US, there is Senate. Now, when naming of country was being discussed in Constituent Assembly, now what we are having? United States of America, USA, it is called as United States of America, and the first article in our Constitution, then even there was discussion whether it should be given as United States of India, USI. The first article says that India, that is Bharat, is union of states. So it is United States of America, and we, India, that is Bharat, is union of states. So what is the difference? That we will elaborate. Anyway, on each point there are multiple ways of elaborating. I will try to cut short. Sometimes you may find that it is an abrupt cut. If you think so that it is an abrupt cut, you may remind me sometime later so that I will elaborate on that at a different aspect. So, In US, states came together to form a union, and when our Constituent Assembly was there, Constituent Assembly was formed. Remember that now there is a very clear need of avoiding confusion. India got independence by the virtue of which act? India got independence by the virtue of Independence of India Act, enacted by British Parliament on 18th July 1947. Then Constituent Assembly was established prior to that. Constituent Assembly was established prior to that. When Constituent Assembly was established prior, now I would like every question I will not answer immediately. I will leave the, and as I had already stated that there are so many things which are interconnected that on each point we can deviate and deliberate. So right now I would like this point to be noted by you, thought over by you. Obviously thought over means these are something which are factual things. So merely by thinking on your own without literature there will not be any outcome. When I say you are supposed to think on it means obviously you are supposed to Google search, and then based on Google search you are supposed to analyze the information. So we are at this main point. In that we have come to US Senate. In that, in comparison, we are coming to US Constitution, Indian Constitution. In that we are coming to Constituent Assembly, and the question is, it's a big question, very important question that you are supposed to search, analyze. That instead of a direct question, I would like to make a confusing question. I would like to make a confusing question that I deliberately remember that during the discussion, so as to give rise to your curiosity, your analytical skills, your interest, I will be deliberately twisting some questions, some situations, and being a very what we can say important subject, it is having its wider impact. I am sure that any kind of such kind of twisting, some kind of vague comments I will make. Now why vague? It should not be misinterpreted. Vague comments are means there is a concept of proving by negation. In order to prove by negation, a deliberately vague negative comment is made, and then when a vague negative comment is made, in learning process the learners try their level best to argue in such a manner to, what we can say, expose the negation. So suppose if that, and I am sure that you are mature enough and nobody will take it in otherwise sense. Say for example, one says that democracy has failed in India. If one says that in the discussion, the statement is made, there has been sheer failure of democracy in India. In that situation, if that statement is made, what the arguer should do? Arguers should try to convince in a very effective manner to counter the vague negative statement. There are some vague negative statements, and when some confusing statements are made, the purpose of confusing statement is to exactly focus on the theme so that some prima facie conclusion must be clarified, and for that purpose a detailed explanation is needed. So the question is that many occasions during maybe your childhood, but during your childhood the things were very clear, maybe childhood of your parents, 15th August and 26th January, these were the days where flag hoisting was done. तुम्ही जर घरी वडिलांना विचारलं, आई वडिलांना विचारलं, तर आज आता आपण 15 ऑगस्ट 26 जानेवारी म्हणतो, स्वातंत्र्य दिन, प्रजासत्ताक दिन म्हणतो. त्यांच्या काळात शाळेत जेव्हा जात असतात तेव्हा झेंडा बांधून जायचा आहे. 15 ऑगस्ट 26 जानेवारी झेंडा बांधून जायचा. त्याचा नेमका अर्थ काय तो त्यावेळी बऱ्याच लोकांना माहीत नसायचा. आज आता तुम्हाला कितपत माहिती आहे, बऱ्यापैकी माहीत असावा. स्टील 15th ऑगस्ट 1947 and 26th January 1950. It is called Independence Day, it is called as Republic Day. Now, if a question is asked, what was the status of our country on 15th August, or we can say on the transition day, let us say 16th August 1947. On 16th August 1947, who was appointing head of the state of India? Number one, I am not answering, I am posing questions to you so that you can think and form your opinion. Then, if India became independent on 15th August 1947, what was the state between this date and this date, and why at all that Republic Day is having any kind of relevance? What was the situation prior to 15th August? So there are 3 periods. It is a long period of 2.5, around 2 years and 4 months. Prior to that and after that. So what was the situation prior to this? What was the situation prior to this? What was the situation of our country in between this? What is the situation after this? So you elaborate, you think over it, and try to see. Remember that these are the things. Then one will say, what is use of knowing all these things? If you ask such questions, then one may end up with the question, what is the use of purpose of my living? What is purpose of my living? What is use of my living? So don't ask for everything. There may not be the purpose. Updation, value addition of ourselves is a good purpose, and this is a very good way of thinking. It will try to build you logically more perfect, in a more perfect manner. Now, if it is so, then there is one more day, that is then when Constituent Assembly came into being. When Constituent Assembly came into being? Constituent Assembly came into being on the first meeting of Constituent Assembly took place on 9th December 1946. On 9th December 1946. It is clearly before. So, just I am deliberately asking some questions which will give rise to some kind of thinking amongst you, and these answers to these questions will be sought during evaluation for the students in semester 1, in semester 2 and mid semester evaluation. The question answer would not be what we can say simply, means if a question is asked that write note on this, that you can easily write this, will also be there, but there will be some questions which will really test your abilities, and obviously it is what we can say for IS, for mid semester, there will be some standard format, but for in semester evaluation, it would be open ended. There is no point in asking you a memory test. So it will be obviously open book, means in the sense that in the assignment, something assigned to you on which you are supposed to think, you are supposed to refer, and you are supposed to write. That's all. So my question now is here. See now, I wanted to start with Rajya Sabha where I had ended. So we will be ending the session soon, but there will be next, like in the next session we will elaborate. So on 9th December 1946, whether it means Constituent Assembly was formed, but if we try to correlate the things based on international happenings, based on atmosphere in our country and all that, on 9th December 1946, when Constituent Assembly was formed, there was no question of India getting any kind of independence, because it became independent on 15th August 1947. Even in Independence of India Act was passed by British Parliament on 18th July 1947. So Constituent Assembly started its functioning, and at that time even the assembly itself, when we say assembly, its members themselves were not knowing what is there in their hands, what are their rights, like that. So it was expected that some kind of limited, means since 1773 Regulation Act, 1892 Councils Act, 1909 Council Act, 1919 Government of India Act, 1935 Government of India Act, like that there will be some kind of limited freedom for people of our country, might have been thought when the Constituent Assembly started functioning. In fact, unfortunately, because of the discussion and very hostile atmosphere in our country owing to partition, the Constituent Assembly could not function substantially at the initial phase. The next major event happened on 20th February 1947, where British Prime Minister Attlee announced that, that after 30th June 1948, English people do not intend to rule India anymore. So 30th June 1948 was decided as the deadline. Then that time, at least, so what I would like to give to you is that you go through Attlee's statement, which is a very detailed one, on 20th February 1947, he made it in British Parliament. Then that time he had made clear that it will be depending upon how things developed, whether India as a whole or it needs to be partitioned. Then things took place further, and 3rd January 1947, when there was a changeover in Governor General, on 3rd January 1947, Lord Mountbatten, who was Governor General and Viceroy, actually I would not answer all these things right now. So you just you might have heard the word interchangeably. What was Lord Mountbatten's post? Somewhere it is Governor General, somewhere you have heard it Viceroy. So what Viceroy and Governor General, why these are two terms that you may think and come up with solution, was there, and he made a very detailed plan called as Mountbatten Plan, and based on the Mountbatten Plan, things unfolded. Independence of India was passed in British Parliament, and India became independent on 15th August 1947. So the question is, on 16th August 1947, what was the status of India? Who was head of the state? Who was head of the state on that day, and who used to appoint them? So you may think over on these aspects. Anyway, so we deviated here while discussing how the first article, India, that is Bharat, will be union of states. Now we focus on the contents of Rajya Sabha. Anyway, as I have said that there will be small duration lectures, but since these are the contents available on YouTube, what you can do is, if it goes long and your patience is getting exhausted, you may make a break and then you can again relearn it. It is entirely up to you. So, there is a difference that like USA, Indian states have not come together to form union. Indian states have not come together to form the union. Constituent Assembly was constituted and somehow it enacted a constitution, and in that it said that India is union of states. Important thing is that a state does not have authority to leave the union. Even though state is having a constitutional existence, it does not have an authority to leave the union, and a state can be abolished into a union territory, it can be divided, multiple states can be merged. So all possible things are kept there. So in that context, what we can say, bias of federation is towards union. Union is strong and states are not having independent entities to a large extent. Now in US there is so here you will get the idea very clear of now House of Commons, House of Lords, I leave it up to you right now, it's not important. Let us focus on in US and India. In US, there is House of Representatives, and there is Senate. And in India, we have House of People or Lok Sabha, and we have Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha, House of People, and it is Council of States. Now, in US, I am elaborating, so as I want to make a point very clear. In US, we had 538 representatives in House of Representatives, and in Senate there are 100 representatives. How many states are there in US? There are 50 states in US. There are 50 states in US. Say California, you may be aware. Then Iowa, due to US presidential election, you might be Texas, aware about the states in US. There are 50 states in US. Now, 538 representatives in House of Representatives, 538 members and 100 members in Senate. What is main difference? That US is having a federation, United States more focused towards states. the various law, in fact, you may be aware that I am just elaborating. Our purpose is not US President election discussion. You may be aware that in 2000, not 2000, in 2000 election, 2000 election, there was a fight between George Bush and Al Gore. And that time, I don't know whether you are aware or not, there was issue that the election was getting challenged. Then, in fact, people have a habit to criticize Indian system as if the other systems are very much perfect. That time, what we were having in US, the manner of voting to be conducted in multiple states depends upon some states' laws, and there was some kind of voting pattern where it was partially atomized. There was a doubt that it has been done for favoring a particular candidate, and that was to be challenged. So the method of challenging and all these things are, what I wanted to stress, are different in different states. In fact, actually, I am again coming to next point. What I had already stated that one of the assignment which I would like to give later on, it's connected to subject, even though the subject is Constitution of India, since Constitutional Studies and method of electing a president is very interesting aspect in India as well, that I will be elaborating it later time. But US president election, where electors are chosen by people, there is a different method in different states. So what I want to focus is that in US, states are having more freedom, and in India, states do not have that much freedom. Okay, next point. Next point is that how 538 representatives are chosen. There are 50 states. All states are not of equal size either in area or in population. So the number of representatives which are chosen are proportionate to their population. So number of members of each state are different in House of Representatives, whereas in Senate all states are of equal weightage. All states are of equal weightage, and each state sends 2 representatives on Senate. Listen very carefully. All states do carry equal weightage, and they send 2 representatives on Senate. Even though there is a very small state and there is a very big state, they send equal representatives. Whereas in our country see, actually I wanted to start with the Rajya Sabha, but I can't do it mechanically, because the contents when they come in the flow, I would not like to avoid them. So House of People is having how many representatives? House of People is having 543 representatives. House of People is having 543 representatives. And in fact, we claim that Pak occupied Kashmir right now should also have 2 members. So it is actually 545 plus 2 Anglo-Indian, which is now abolished. and Council of States is having 245, of which 233 are chosen by states and 12 are nominated by President. 233 are chosen by states, 12 are nominated by President. Now here is a big question. How these 543 representatives are distributed among different states? So it was, if you go through original constitution, then for 7.5 lakh population, not voters, for 7.5 lakh population, one member of parliament in Lok Sabha was planned for. And after each census, there was a concept of delimitation. The parliamentary constituencies are to be redrawn. After each census, what was to be done? That population of each state was to be taken into consideration. Based on that 7.5 lakh means the first Lok Sabha had 489 members. Then based on the population, number of representatives were to be decided, and each state is to be divided into equal territorial constituencies. Each state was to be divided into equal territorial constituencies. In Maharashtra we have 48 Lok Sabha constituencies, and when these are formed, that time the equal population is to be there for each Lok Sabha constituency. Based on that, various parts are to be connected to each constituency. In fact, now this is one more which I would also like to give you. Up to 1962 election, there were some composite constituencies. You may be aware that for Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, for Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies, specified number of constituencies are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and the number of constituencies reserved are proportionate to their population. Now, this is having a long history, and I also actually we just now celebrated Gandhi Jayanti, and Pune Pact, that time name of Pune was Pune. Ramsay MacDonald declared something. There was round table conference, and in 1932 Gandhiji went to fast on some specific issue of separate electorate, and there was very hectic, what we can say, negotiations between Gandhiji and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and after that Pune Pact was signed. Now I would like that students should try to go through the history and what was exact bone of contention. Anyway, now as the theme has deviated to this point, I would like to elaborate it to a reasonable extent. The issue of debate was not at all the reservation of seats to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the legislative assemblies that time. Means it was not independent country, but legislative assemblies were there having some limited functioning, limited powers. So there was not at all dispute of providing the separate representation to scheduled castes that time in the legislative assemblies, legislative bodies. The issue was, number one, that time the scheduled castes were comprising around 15% of Indian population. So there may be a debate if in a democratic setup, if 15% population is there, then naturally in a democratic system those many candidates will naturally come, but that doesn't happen. And why that doesn't happen, or that can't be ascertained to happen, because there is no proportional representation system, which would be discussed when we discuss Rajya Sabha. What was the scenario? That in each territorial constituency the scheduled castes were distributed, and because of the situation which was prevalent that time, it was apprehension of many that the word which was used for other Hindus was caste Hindus and scheduled castes. So that time there was apprehension that caste Hindus will not allow any scheduled caste representative person as their elected representative, because even though it was 15% as a whole, in every constituency it was ranging between 10 to 20%, and if it was decided by majority caste Hindus that in any case we will not allow, it was not possible. Therefore, the concept of reserving seats was thought. Then what was Gandhiji's view? Remember that if you go through debates, Gandhiji and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had a very heated exchange of debate, and when we follow them, we may have any school of thought, but we should respect both individuals, that we do not have that much competency to criticize any of them, but let us analyze what was the major bone of contention. Because of lack of awareness, one may naturally think that Gandhiji was opposing the reserved constituencies. It was not. Gandhiji was not at all opposing reserved constituencies, but what was in that McDonald Pact and what was the contention of Dr. Ambedkar, it was that Gandhiji was saying that yes, you should have common constituencies and few constituencies you keep reserved for scheduled caste, as which exists today. Means, say for example, you might be knowing that Solapur is reserved for scheduled castes, and so in Solapur, so what is done as of today, that few constituencies in the country or in each state are reserved, where the member from scheduled caste can file the nomination, he can contest the election, and all members vote. And in general constituencies, anybody can contest and all members vote. What was Dr. Ambedkar's contention that time? It was his contention, and later on a very compromising solution was found out. He said that in the reserved constituencies, even though scheduled caste people will get representation, but since to win it they are required to be dependent on the votes of caste Hindus, the scheduled caste representatives will not be working hard for the welfare of scheduled castes. So it was stressed that is called as separate electorate. Caste Hindus will only vote for caste Hindus, and scheduled castes will only vote for scheduled castes. So that time, say in Bombay province, if there are 100 constituency, if 100 seats are to be chosen, if there would be 15 seats for scheduled caste, remaining seats for say caste Hindus. But how? That entire Bombay state will be divided into say 85 constituencies. Each of them will choose one caste Hindu or any candidate, and there will, to that, only caste Hindus will vote and scheduled castes will not vote. And as a whole, again, there are 85 constituencies. For simplicity, let us make it 20%. So if there are 100 constituencies, 80 are general seats, 80 are caste Hindu seats on which caste Hindus will vote. Bombay state will be divided into 80 constituencies, and where the scheduled caste voters will vote, scheduled caste voters will not vote for these 80 candidates, whereas there will be 4 constituencies clubbed together, and all scheduled caste voters in those 4 constituencies will vote only for a representatives of scheduled caste. So it was called as separate electorate, and Gandhiji that time was insisting that this should not be done, and Dr. Ambedkar was insisting that this should be done, because if this is not done, the scheduled caste representatives will not be representing them in a proper manner. So after rigorous discussion, a compromise formula was found out, and what is a compromise formula and all that, I will leave it to you as some homework, and based on your homework we can discuss in the next lecture. We can have a break now.